All right, welcome back to Meet in the Middle. I'm Christine Brown, and my guest today in studio, Craig West. Craig, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate that.
I thought you were going to ask me my political thoughts, and my daughter's been trying to get me to run for office for a long time.
Really?
Both of my grandfathers were elected officials, and talking about meeting in the middle, one was a Republican and one was a Democrat.
Oh.
My grandfather, Ben West, 4 terms, county commission in Kansas, Osborne County, and he never ran.
He never ran?
He was a writing candidate every time. He was so liked.
Yeah.
And he never ran. He refused to campaign, never took any money, and was elected 4 terms and served 16 years.
Wow.
Never got to meet him. He died 3 months after I was born, but when my aunt died back in 2009, went back to Osborne. Someone was in the lawyer's office, and one of the guys sitting there, older gentleman, probably early 80s, and said, "Are you," to my brother Alan and I, go, "Are you Ben West's grandsons?" I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, we are." I said, "I just want to tell you, he's the finest man I've known in my entire life."
Oh, wow.
So,
nice.
I felt pretty good walking away like that, and I've always felt that you deal, your word is bond, and that's what you do, Don't go back on your word. You may have to say things you don't like, but you have to do it.
Yeah. All right, people, did I tell you that Craig West could talk about anything? Yes, all right. You just totally proved me right there, Craig, and I really appreciate it.
There we go. But I haven't listened to my daughter yet.
Your daughter is suggesting why bother voting, and you always vote?
Every time.
Yeah,
I vote the day it comes in.
Yeah.
And I can't believe, how do you have 19% show up?
Oh, it's horrible.
And it's by mail only. Now, I will say, before they ever did that, I've been voting absentee for probably at least the last 20 years, and mainly I signed up for that because of my travel schedule. And it started because of baseball and hockey when I did that in Spokane, and I said, I'm going to miss an election. So it was always inbred into me by my parents that it was a right, you need to vote. The first vote that I ever had was in 1974, and it was a key year. That was right toward the end of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
There were a lot of issues. I'm also, to tell you my age, so I'm of the age group, that was the last year they had to register for the draft.
Yeah.
And, kids today have no idea, and I was number 13 in the lottery. So I made sure I went to school.
Yeah.
If you didn't go to college, you were going to Vietnam.
Yes.
I respect all those that went.
Yes, absolutely.
It was a tough war.
It was. If we had a draft again, I think we would have a different attitude about war. I don't know. Personally, I wish we did have a draft. Or actually, what I wish is that every young person post 18 had to give 2 years of their life to the United States in some pursuit. It could be working in soup kitchens, or being a teacher's aide, or it could be the military, but you have to give 2 years of service. Yeah, I wish we did, but we don't. All right, so anyway, here's a phone number if you want to call and join in on the conversation today. It's 547-8726. So, what's going on with the Americans this year? Is it going to be an entertaining year? That's how I look at it.
Well, I walked in the office today, about 11 o'clock when I walked back in today, and I noticed there was a big 6'5" guy that was there, Brandon Carlo.
6'5".
6'5", and signed by the Boston Bruins. He got to play 2 games, NHL exhibition games, and one of them he was the kid that played in our league that's no longer a kid. He's 39 years old, Zdeno Chara, that's the captain of the Bruins, and that was his defense partner. So for everybody that was thinking the whites of Brandon Carlo's eyes would not come back again, he's here and he'll play on Saturday night. And that was a big stick that was missing for sure, that the Americans did not have in Spokane on Saturday night. Could have used him really in the third period. Shutdown guy, a lot of penalty kills that including a 5-minute power play in the final 15 minutes that Spokane had. 5-on-3 situation where Brandon would have been out there. We lost a defenseman with a call, 5-minute hit from behind by Dylan Coughlin, which I didn't think was a 5-minute penalty, but I'm not refereeing the game. There have been 5-minute penalties I've given out in games when I referee that they players respectfully disagree, and so I respectfully disagree. But you know, you'll have to hear from the league. You get a 5-minute penalty. The guys killed it off, but Spokane has a long change, 20 years of the only arena in the entire world where they have backward benches. So you can't get off the ice. You're stuck in your end. Normally you have a short change in the first and third period. So you're out there, you can't get off the ice. You can't clear the zone. You got a 5-on-3 and the guys stay out there. You've lost a defenseman and it just, you know, wears you out. It can work to their advantage, it can work to their disadvantage. And it worked to their advantage in this game.
Yeah. Well, Spokane rivalry is actually, I think, a pretty good situation for the Americans. I mean, it's just a little bit up north. I mean, people can go back and forth and actually watch those games versus when you take off and go to these interesting locations in Canada.
When I walked upstairs, the first 10 people I saw in the arena as I went to the elevator coming from the bowels of the Spokane arena all had American jerseys on.
Oh, hey, that's pretty good. Yeah, that must make you feel good.
Yeah, can't say we see as many Spokane jerseys here, but we see an awful lot of American jerseys that go there.
Yeah, that's nice. All right, so what else is going to be happening this year in, you know, your lineup there?
Well, the opening night, Saturday night, is always a lot of fun, and you know, John gets to yell and scream and be John and do the things that he does.
The PA.
He's no, you're suitable.
He's a good PA guy.
Yeah.
I've done PA, and he's a cheerleader, whereas I don't know I could be a cheerleader.
Well, in Mulhausen, it's kind of funny because he's told me I'm not supposed to pause on controversial referee calls, so I get around that by using sarcasm. I go, is sarcasm okay? Because if you are a little bit over the top as far as an announcer, you will hear from the league.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so I've learned how to use sarcasm. In fact, one of my proudest moments was last year, the year before, when Sean Raphael made a point to tell the guys in the off-ice booth there. They called up there, and he said he didn't appreciate my inflections. And,
Yes.
To which I wrote, I don't think they conveyed this to him. I said, well, tell him if he does a better job, I wouldn't have to critique his work.
Oh,
so
God.
that's as close as I've ever come
Yeah.
to getting fined.
Yeah.
I have fun with it because, you know, you don't want to be over the top, but yeah, I mean, if it's, you can tell the mood.
I know,
I'm
but
still,
what about
you know,
what
7
about when
years
you go
later,
to somebody else's place? You don't want that. If like look at the Americans fans that go up to Spokane, and if they had to listen to the announcer who was definitely pro Spokane.
Well, I just.
Well, they do.
And
Okay.
you'll get a kick out of this, Westy.
Yeah.
I will never allow myself, or hopefully, to ever be like a Hawk Harrelson.
I don't know that. So
He's the one of the announcers for the Chicago White Sox.
Ah, okay.
And,
We and us and you know,
oh yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'll hear that on the Seahawk broadcast, and I keep thinking, you two guys haven't played in what, 30 years, 20 years? It's like you're not a we or us anymore. You may be paid by them. So I can tell you, I'll never say we or us or whatever. That's for the players. That's for the coaches, and you have to have some kind of professional decorum. You know.
Yes, yes.
When I have
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have always considered myself a journalist, and the first job I ever had was in 1976 in Grand Coulee, and I was hired as a news guy. News, did some sales, and got to call Record Sports. It was a daytimer, KFDR, and got to do football, and we ran it back the next day, and I got $12 for doing the game. That was my
$12.
$12.
Yeah.
And here we are today. So every once in a while, when I drive through. Once a year I'll try and take that 155 up through Nest Pelham so I can go by the old Lake Roosevelt High School and remember the magic moments of calling games there.
Yeah.
It get a little cold.
Yeah, most of the folks that do call games, I think, for sports, it's just the love of the activity that is so much more important than the money.
Yeah, I was a kid from LA and coming up, and I'll never forget calling a game in Leavenworth, and it was 12 degrees. And we're sitting outside,
Oh my.
and it was
Oh.
just awful.
Yeah.
It was 12 degrees.
That's horrible.
I think I chattered the
Yeah.
entire game. I chuckled listening to that game the next day. It was like, well, I think I put on a pretty good act, but you could hear the, you know, we talked a lot about Wild Rainiers running in the back, and there was a lot of things going on. Remember the old Wild Rainiers where they had the beer bottles that ran through and
Yes, I know, yeah.
We thought
Love
we
that.
saw a couple of run by back behind the stands, so.
All right, okay, back to the Americans now. So, what else? Well, tell me some of your new players this year. And don't those kids pretty much go to Kamaikan High School?
Pretty much, and
Yeah.
it's the average age of the Americans this year is just under 17.9.
Very
So
young.
that means they're young.
Yes.
There's 4 16-year-olds and one that'll be of the most high profile. And the last 2 years have been down years, so you draft higher. That's the advantage in both years, drafting 7th. And last year, they were able to get Michael Rasmussen, who made just a tremendous play in a setup for one of the 2 goals that Tyler Sandu had in the game. That was just a playmaker's, and he's a big kid. When we drafted him, when the team drafted him, he was 6'2", and when the Americans signed him and he showed up in Kelowna to play late last season, so back in March, he was 6'4.5", grew 2.5 inches during the year. He's a big
Whoa.
man,
Yeah.
and 16 years old. He's
Oh.
huge, and made this tremendous play. Waited, pulled the defenseman over, pulled him out of the play, makes a feed. Sandu goes to the net, redirects the pass, and scores. Just a great goal. I'm sure you could go on to amshockey.com and you can check it. But you'll see the feed that he did. And to expect a 16-year-old to come in and be a dominant player, like there aren't many that can come in and do it. It's
Yes.
really, really hard. You're playing against guys 19, 20 years old that are men. And that's the great thing about the league, is that you get this development of the guys, and they go at different paces. I can go back when Damon Lanko was here, and Damon, I think his first year, had 50 points at 16, and I remember going, and I was working in Spokane at the time, and it was like, this guy's really good. Well, he was really good, and he had a very, very prominent career that came to a close a couple of years ago. But, you know, to expect him to be that kind of player, it's not. He's going to be Michael Rasmussen, but he's going to be a really good player, and he'll be a high NHL pick. In goal, with Eric Comrie graduating to the pro game, going to Winnipeg, and if people ask where's he going to play, well, he's going to play in Winnipeg one way or another. He's either going to play for the Jets, or he's going to play for their farm team, the Manitoba Moose, which both play in the MTS Center in Winnipeg. So the American Hockey League this year, the developmental league, top developmental league, moved a bunch of teams west. There's 5 teams now in California in the Western Division, which you always looked at that state and go, how come they aren't it? You know, why aren't there farm teams there? Why wouldn't the LA Kings have a team there? Why wouldn't the Anaheim Ducks have a team? Well, now they do. And Calgary's got one. They're in Stockton. And so there's 5. San Jose, in fact, put their own team in their own building. So they'll be able to develop their guys and be right in their backyard. You want to call up the goalie? Here, just get in the car and come down the street. You're
Yeah.
playing tonight.
Yeah, that seems like a lot better deal. So what other Americans have gone to the NHL?
Oh gosh, it's a long, long
Is
list.
it? Well, that's great.
It's
Yeah.
such a long list. I mean, there were 5 guys, to give you an idea about the franchise of the 28 years, on the 125 names for the 50-year anniversary of the Western Hockey League. And there were some pretty good players that were left off the list. So Stu Barnes, of course, is on the list.
Yeah.
But Ole Kolzig didn't make it.
Whoa.
And I'm thinking, like, well, really? And I'm looking at some of the other goaltenders, and I'm like, okay. But there were 5.
You've Godzilla off there.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Carey Price, probably, if you look at all the players that have come through here, has to be the most prominent. And he is the dominant. Well, he got 4 awards at the NHL Awards in Las Vegas back in June. It's never happened before. And he's such a likable guy. He's married to a girl from Kennewick. They come back here, raise money in the Ole and Stu golf tournament for the Carson Kolzig Foundation and to fight autism. He's a guy that, how do you not like Kerry?
Yeah.
I mean, the name we had for him was Care Bear. He was a hugger.
Oh my gosh.
But my favorite
Wow,
Carey
that's
Price
good.
story ever was told by his father, Jerry. And when the season ends, he's done with hockey. He's not a guy that eats and sleeps his sport. He gets ready. It's his job. But in the off season, he likes rodeo. And he likes...
They can't allow him to.
He likes to rope
Whoa.
and calf roping.
Hmm.
So, it's not going to get hurt doing that, are you?
You're not?
You might.
Oh,
It's
you
not
might.
like you're fighting a bull here, you know.
No,
it's-
you're not fighting a bull, but
steer,
you're
but,
jumping
you know,
off.
Yeah, it's
a
not.
horse.
It's
Oh,
it's
no.
not steer wrestling, but
No.
it's a release for him.
Yeah.
And he had a tremendous fight at first in Montreal. He was sharing the net with another goaltender, and Yaroslav Halak is from Slovakia, and his agent was very pushy to get ice time. So they finished the problem, and during the off season, he was traded a few years ago. And at the bottom of the screen, TSN, which is the ESPN of Canada, which ESPN does own 20% of TSN with Bell Media. Across the bottom of the screen, it says that Yaroslav Halak was traded for a draft pick to the St. Louis Blues. So Kerry was out on the ranch in Williams Lake, BC, and lo and behold, Jerry says to me, "Hey, they just traded Halak. He's going to St. Louis." He goes, "Well, that's nice, Dad. Where's my rope?" Didn't even care.
Oh,
like
that's
that.
interesting.
That's a pro.
Yeah,
That's a pro.
That is. He's just a generous man. Maybe he also took some lessons from Stu and Ole. Two other
And he's
incredibly
played
generous
in
men.
that tournament. You know, a lot of former players have
Yeah.
come in. For example, Dylan Stanley having a tremendous career in Europe. You know, he's gone over there, and as a smaller guy, he never was the greatest skater, but he saw the game, and he had tremendous hands, and he could dish the puck. He saw what was going on, and he and Ryan Kanasowicz, who's having a great career in Europe as well. They saw the puck so well together. It was always Mr. Peanut Butter and Mr. Jelly. They just seemed to go very well together, very
Yeah.
very nicely.
That's what you need. All right, hey, we're going to take a break here. We'll be back. If you've got some questions, maybe some comments that you want to offer up here to Craig West as my guest, don't hesitate, 547-8726. We're back in a moment. Hey, glad you could join us on this Monday today. My guest in the studio is Craig West. He works with Tri-City Americans, and you are the radio voice for the Tri-City Americans. Plus, I know that you do a lot of other work that is related to connecting the Americans with people here in the Tri-Cities. So what are we going to see this year in terms of getting people out in, coming to the arena?
Well, I think first and foremost is I think the fans are going to see a better product. And the last couple of years, we won 20 of 36 last year, and that's good. That's not bad. You're over 500, but there was a stretch of 7 years. Fans were spoiled. We spoiled them. We were winning 30 games a year at home.
Yeah.
But you can't expect to do that forever, and you take a step back every now and then, and that's what's happened the last couple of years. But I think you're going to see a much better product on ice. And I think you're going to see that. And we touched on Eric Comrie being gone, but Evan Sarthau, he was just last week in the U.S. Prospects game in Buffalo, was on the NHL Network, gave a good accounting. All-star games have a tendency, Christine, they don't play defense. I'm an old man, but I still play goalie. And I played tonight at 8:15, if you don't believe it, at the arena.
It's a serious record.
I'm very serious. I was in Coeur d'Alene last night. I had a game at 8:20. We tied 6-6. 75-minute games. We play.
Yeah.
So, and I'm doing the same thing that I was doing at 20, I do at 60. So I refuse to age. And when people find out how old I am, the guys in Coeur d'Alene, like I've got a 19-year-old last night firing these rockets at me. Took a couple of launches to get used to the speed, but once I was into it, it was like, it's another, you're just flicking them away. Kind of like playing war. But Sarthal is a special kid, and his parents, and you have to like Evan, he's a local kid to me. He's from Black Diamond, Washington, and you've got that. You've got a captain that in 28 years is the first American to be the captain of the Americans, and that being Bo McHugh. His parents are teachers. Gino was a high school teacher in Pasco, and he'll be coaching the Outlaws this year, the Tier 3 team that plays in the NORPAC, and they open up this Friday night. So we're rooting for Gino. He's got a kid there, Tanner Merkley, that I've worked a little bit with the last couple of years, recommended to him. In fact, he filled in for me in Coeur d'Alene. He's a good goaltender. He's one of them. And the other kid, Titan Greer, has won the Bantam AAA crown in Boise, won the national title a few years ago. So they've got two really good goaltenders, and it's a matter of filling in the pieces. So, yeah, I like the idea of having that. You got Taylor Vickerman, that won the Humanitarian of the Year in the Western Hockey League, that's born and raised here. You've got, some real local ties now to the hockey club. And we talked about Stu Barnes before. His son Jack was a 5th-round draft pick, and Brendan O'Reilly's brother too. They're really slick together. They look great in training camp, and they're a year away. Maybe we'll see them by the end of the year, 15 turning 16, but look for those guys next year. And Jack Barnes had a great weekend in Coeur d'Alene. I know on Saturday they beat the Coeur d'Alene select team over there. It was 4-3, and Jack had 2 goals and 2 assists. And he's got hands like his dad. So if he, I know when I shook his hand back in December, and he and Stu drove back from a game with me from Spokane, and they were going to the Seahawk game the next day. That was his Christmas present from his wife. They got to go to the Seahawk game. So shook Jack's hand and was like, this guy's a man. 15 years old. It was like a rock, just awesome. So these are things that excite me, where you see guys like that out of Dallas, to just show you how the game has grown. And I remember back, when I was playing back in the 70s in LA, people think, you play hockey? Like I was, I had horns growing out of my head. We had 8 ice rinks, and now we've got Brian Williams. I was the witness on the contract that they did with his family when he signed on with the team 5 years ago, and now he's in his final year. It's hard to believe. His dad is a big Dodger fan, played baseball, went to UCLA, and then when his kid came to him, he goes, hey Dad, I'm going to play hockey. He was like, huh? You want to do what?
Well, don't they have a really good
definitely
LA
grown
Selects
here.
team down there?
Yeah, they do. The LA Junior Kings now, and they had the LA Selects, but they've had a phenomenal program, and now you've probably got 60 rinks. In the area that I grew in, they had no, really you had to drive a ways to have a rink. There were maybe 8 to 10 in LA, and there was no hockey. It was hard to find. So, but now you're seeing just a breakthrough. Kids come from the Sun Belt. The #1 pick in the NHL next year will be a kid by the name of Austin Matthews, and he's from Phoenix.
Yes, that's
So,
unusual.
I wouldn't be surprised to see the Coyotes tank it this year so they can have the first pick. Try and get a local guy #1.
Bottom line is, though, for the fans out there, they're going to see a higher quality of hockey. That's what you believe.
I believe that.
And you think that is going to bring people out.
I honestly do.
Good teams do bring people out.
Yeah.
Now, I want to
and I want to mention Brandon Carlo, too. We talked about him. He's from Colorado Springs. And here he is, a high draft pick. So Brandon is a special kid.
Well, let's add this caller to our conversation today. Hi, you're on the air with us.
Yeah, well, it's always the web. There always is the web TV that is on every single game. And if you don't want to listen to me, you can listen to the visiting broadcast. So they give you a choice. I think the fee is $7.30, or you can buy a season package, which is under $200, and you can watch every single team in the Western Hockey League. It's a great deal, and it's HD.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like
So it's
NFL
fabulous.
Sunday ticket
Yeah.
idea.
And Christine, I'll give her full credit, because the Americans last year did a deal with SWX,
Mhm.
and you presented a very nice deal, which is carried over. And so, Christine, you deserve credit for getting the Americans over on SWX, which there'll be 6 broadcasts this year,
6 broadcasts. That's great.
2 from Spokane, and then 4 that
Oh,
will originate from here.
Mm-hmm.
So we look forward to do that. And the first game that will be on over-the-air TV on SWX will be coming up on November the 7th against Spokane, and that'll also go throughout the region. It'll be in Spokane as well. So Christine deserves the credit for that.
Oh, that's kind of you, but all right. That's great to be on television. That's an extra bonus for you as well.
And of course on News Talk 870 and
There you go.
on the website, click listen live. We
Yeah.
stream every game.
Well, and we get a lot. The stream goes way up. It goes from flatline to way up when the games are streamed.
Yeah.
Ton of people, and you know, like for example, if you work at the nuclear site, I talk to people that are out there at night. You're not going to pick up anything in cement, but
No.
you know, they can pick it up online and they listen to the game.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
And a lot across Canada too.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, you know, the parents and friends and others that follow the team. So
All right, we better take a break here so we can get those in. But when we come back, I want to ask Craig about the facility, the Toyota Arena. No, not the arena, it's the Toyota Center. So we'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us. I want to talk about the facility because it's owned by the city of Kennewick and you lease it. That's correct, right? The
That's
Toyota Center. So the Toyota Center is 28 years old. How's it doing?
yeah, it's going to have its birthday the 1st of November, right
Okay.
around there when the first ever game was played, and they. You know, I remember, and I'll tell you the thinking when the announcement came. I was living in Palm Springs, and I'd worked in Portland for 9.5 years, and worked in radio, and I always went to the Winterhawk games. I'll confess, I was a Winterhawk fan,
Yeah.
and had season seats. In the first ever U.S. Memorial Cup, I went to the games in the Coliseum. I had 9 tickets that I personally purchased, and then friends bought them off for me. So I was a big supporter and knew the league. But I remember looking at Hockey News, and they were going to go to Kennewick, Washington. I howled. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, no, they're not. They're
Wow.
not going to go there.
Wow. Huh.
And this is funny. I used to, you know, my wife and I divorced in 1988 when we were in Palm Springs, and she was a Portland girl. So I missed the kids, and I wanted to get a job that was closer, but not in Portland. And so I wanted to switch careers and got out of being a country morning man and sports on the side, and said I'm going to go full-time play-by-play. And you know, was very fortunate. The Bretts liked what I did, and they hired me to do football and baseball. And I guess as the story went, Bobby told everybody that, well, you know what, if he sucks at hockey, he can do baseball. He sounds like Vince Scully, so we'll take the poor
Yeah,
man
you do a
Scully.
really good job at baseball as well.
I really, and that's a love of mine. I get to do a couple of games for SWX, and that's, you know, I spent too many years out of the house. But the kids, I remember coming through here, I'd go through here, and I'd go, who'd want to live here? Well, I've been here 17 years now.
Yeah.
And I honestly, other than maybe Las Vegas, I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather live than here.
Well, it's a common story for people that live here. That's certainly
It just
true.
grew on me.
All right, I want to get back to, because I know you want to be diplomatic and everything, but we haven't really talked about the facility. Does it need some upgrades? 28 years old.
Okay, I'll be as candid as possible.
All right.
I think it needs more than upgrades. I
Okay.
think you're at a point, and I know you can say, well, my house is 40 years old. Well,
Mhm.
you don't have several 100,000 people come through your house and flush your toilets like they do, you know. And when this was built by Ron Dixon, it was done quickly, and it was done to be expedient, to be cost effective. course, you could argue it was cost effective. Some of the people didn't get paid too. If you go back to
Yeah.
go back to 1988, they may be listening. But it probably, and the thought, and Bob Torrey raised it, and there were some people excited, and there were some people unhappy, that you probably need to start discussing at least a replacement for this. And I know the city has a plan. They know it can't last forever. It's not a matter of putting in new seats, Christine. It's more than that. And it's simple infrastructure, and and I think they're really at a point. Gee, do you put in a new scoreboard? Well, if your hope is to get a new building within 10 years? Why would you do that? And I always tell people your phone has more pixels than the scoreboard has, and they spend thousands a year just to fix what that video wall is.
Yeah, I think there is a plan underway. I don't know the details of it at all, but I feel like I've seen some things, because obviously the city's aware of that too. I mean, it's a pretty big investment for the city of Kennewick.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a huge investment, but it's one they'll have to consider, because you keep throwing money into this. It's like, well, really, what are you doing? And it's still the building, if you're going to bring in outside performers, because let's face it, it's a quality of life issue for people. It's a gathering point, and we don't get the amount of shows that we should get just based on the venue. That's part of the issue. And I know, here's what I know historically for, there's the talk of a performing arts center. Unless there is an endowment, and I know this from my time in Palm Springs, which we had the Bob Hope Center, which was 1,400 seats. It's fabulous. It was 5 minutes from my house. But there was an endowment left. The Schnitzer Center in Portland, the Schnitzer Steel family, there's an endowment to make that pay with a smaller venue. Unless you've got 3,000 seats, it's hard to make it pay. You just don't have enough to really make it to where you're going to make money. And it's no different for an arena. If you're going to look at bigger events, you need a bigger facility to think about getting regional events.
Well, Spokane is over about 10,000.
For basketball, they can put in plenty. They get the NCAA tournament the weekend of March 20th to 22nd.
They get men's and women's up there.
Yeah, and they're going to have the men's the opening round. They're going to have the men this year. So, and that's about 13,000 seats for basketball.
Yeah. Well, we have a population base here now, here in the Tri-Cities, 250,000.
It's going to be more.
Dramatically grown, and so we probably have outgrown that. But
I would say
those are tough decisions about what are people going to put their money towards.
When I moved here, there was one of everything. Back in 1998, there was one Target.
Yes.
And now
one
there's
Walmart.
Yeah.
there was one Walmart.
One Lowe's.
Yeah, and now you've got multiples, and that's how I always tell people how it's changed. You had 1 or 2 Jack in the Boxes. And now you've got 6. Yeah, just little things like that you get used to in your everyday life. This area has grown. When I got here, there was 160,000. I would argue, this region in 20 years, I predict will have 400,000 people.
Yeah.
Well,
This has become a real affordable destination, and it's a great place to live.
From a radio standpoint, as far as market size, we've gone up 20 to 25 positions, while other communities not far have gone the other way.
Yeah, Street and Smith's sports business magazine came out last month, and the Tri-Cities have moved up inside the top 90. 5 years ago, they were 317 as far as cities to live in for sports.
Yeah.
317. So we've moved way up. Now Spokane,
yes.
And we're not talking about just big markets, little markets too. And that's kind of what this looks at. The Spokane was 14th. I'm not saying I want to be Spokane, and I certainly don't want to be Portland or Seattle, but there's an opportunity here, and we have to look down the road 20 years, not today. And
We do.
What do you need
but,
today?
Yeah, but we've got to have an economic base too. We've got to have jobs, and that's why people come to an area, because they can get a job, and there are great jobs out there at Hanford right now that pay good money.
But this
that's-
market is
I'm not-
diversified even greater than
I hope
that.
so.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. Hey, we better take a break here. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us. Back to Meet in the Middle, and my guest has been Craig West with the Tri-City Americans. Hey, there's one final question I wanted to ask you. I know these are youngsters who are basically 16 to 20, and they live with families here. Do you have any trouble finding homes for them, billets as it were?
No, it used to be a problem many years ago, and they like to get the kids in with families, not where they've got kids that they can play with, be a part of the family, naturalize it, and try and match the pieces as best as they can with what their family life is. So it's a real privilege, and they get a chance to grow up here, and the relationships they have, they stay for years and years. You know, and
Yeah, they do.
I can
Yeah.
tell you, I did it with the Dust Devils. I enjoyed it. Had Ryan Spilborgs and enjoyed every game that he played with the Colorado Rockies and following his career. And you know, when I saw him in Portland playing AAA baseball, hey Dad, you know, it was like,
Oh,
so it was
that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So can people just notify the Americans office
can always
if they would
check.
be interested in the
Yeah,
future?
and sometimes they look at short-term
Yeah.
options, you know, training camp, things like that. You can call 736-0606.
All right. Craig, thanks for joining us today. I love it. I love hearing about it. Good luck this season.
And
That's for sure.
See you on Saturday
Yeah.
night against the Chiefs.
There you go.